No, exactly that's what I was talking about. That we all come up with different backgrounds, and we have our own way for sustainable. I mean, we don't call it, or we don't realize that it is sustainable, but when we see now that we were doing before, so we say, oh yes, even though we're not aware of this term, but still we were sustainable in these sense,
Correct.
right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. Makes so much sense. So
exactly.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm happy about that. One more question I'm gonna ask about your social media, because a lot of people who are listening to, or maybe they're gonna be starting, or even for myself. So when you starting making content, so what was your early days content that you were making, and
Oh.
and one viral thing that you had, and that clicked, or you got a lot of response from the people. So what was that?
Gosh, I mean, the first ever post I put on Instagram was a half-eaten chocolate rabbit. So it must have been around Easter. That wasn't for content creation though. That was just Instagram was fun at the start, it was just a hobby. I think maybe it was probably talking, I'm trying to think, maybe like going op shopping and showing what I bought. But also I think at the start for me, Instagram didn't have reels, didn't have videos, it was just a static picture. So most of the time it was just a picture of me wearing something. I do remember one of the first pieces of content creation was a necklace that I'd borrowed from someone, and I was showcasing the necklace. And then I remember when I also did this styling work, it was just pictures of my styling work. So, yeah, I guess my content creation didn't really start until sort of reels started kicking in a bit, and then we get a bit more creative.
Wow.
But I think it was just really simple, like flat lays, I guess was the start.
Right.
Going back a while now.
So we can start as simple, and we grow over time how we're gonna make the content, and we can, analyze what's working or what's not. I think
Yeah.
that's actually makes sense.
Yeah.
So the next thing that we're gonna move forward to is actually when we were having a call before this podcast, you mentioned that you have studied in styling and work in the industry. So what did you learn through that time period, or what is your experience from your lens about that?
So from being a stylist, studying styling, yeah. So I studied styling in, I don't remember what year it was. Maybe it was about 2017, 2018, maybe a little bit later than that. So I studied with Australian Style Institute, which is a institute here in Melbourne, but they do online and have like you can study online and do it all over Australia as well. They have three courses you can do. Back when I was doing it, they had three courses, and I worked my way through all three. I think I did the master's course in like 2020 when we're all all in lockdown, which was fun. I think it was around about then. Yeah, so when I first started, I was working in fast fashion. So I was working at Cotton On, and I was just thought, like, it'd be fun to be a stylist. So I did a bit of research, and I was like, if I've got the opportunity to do it now, why don't I try? Like, there's no harm in trying. So I did it, and I was like, oh, I kind of actually really like this. It's a lot of work, but it's actually quite fun. I quite enjoy getting that sort of picture in my head and creating the outfits and like working with a photographer and a makeup artist and a hairstylist and finding the location and creating that look and like yeah, it made me really happy to do that, and it felt really creative, and working with a team and working with a group was really nice to communicate, which I think it was a skill that I got from retail, like always communicating with your team. So that was a lot of fun. I think I learned a lot of skills from studying styling, but it was also around that time that I was discovering slow fashion. So I think they went hand in hand because that's when I started talking about fashion, but also talking about slow fashion.
Right.
And when we were studying styling, it was more about, what to put on your body. It wasn't where you should get it from ethically and where it goes after you finish with it.
Right.
So I sort of enjoyed thinking about those outsider sort of, I guess, topics that we weren't quite discussing in class. I think ASI now discusses them in class, which is a really big change for them, which is great. But we weren't talking about them at that very early point because there wasn't much chat around slow fashion back then.
Right.
But yeah, it was really nice to sort of intertwine my two passions at the time and chat about them and see people reacting to them.
All right. So the institute that you went for the studying was in Tasmania, or it was
Oh,
somewhere else?
Melbourne.
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 I see.
Yeah, Melbourne. I moved to Melbourne by then.
I see.
So I moved to Melbourne in 2011, I'm going to say. So I've been in Melbourne for quite a while now.
So at that time when you were having and studying about fashion, did you heard about sustainability at that time, or do you see any students who has a fat? I mean, they were inspired or they even mentioned about it? Or I
Not
mean, that was
really. There
very,
wasn't.
yeah, I also believe that 2011 it was very early stages. I mean,
Yeah,
also in US, as far I know, it just started like 20, 30 years ago when they started
yeah,
focusing more on sustainability. So I think
yeah.
it's gonna come, it take a long way to get in there. So you never heard anyone mentioning about it or having a
No, I
concern.
mean, I guess with the rise of social media, you could connect easier, but like I hadn't really thought about it or seen people talking about it or seen it in any magazines or anything before I started looking into it.
Mm.
But it was there, like it was obviously there. It was just, I guess, when people thought of slow fashion back then or sustainable fashion, they probably thought it was a negative way.